Welcome to our Focus Forum. I guess it's actually, afternoon, but welcome. We're just letting everybody filter in here. We're delighted to have you here, and we'll get started in just a moment. It looks like the people are filtering in. We're in the 30s, going to 40. And I think we are, looks like we're all here. So welcome everyone. Thank you for sharing your lunch hour with us. Our topic today is higher education in the time of COVID. I'm Rita Riker, president of the board of Focus Greater Syracuse, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our forum and delighted that our prestigious panelists can join us today. LeMoyne College President Linda LeMura and Syracuse University Chancellor and President Kent Syverud. They will be formally introduced in just a moment. In terms of today's forum, as usual, we're scheduled for 1 hour and we will be recording this session. After being introduced, our panelists will each make a brief presentation, followed by Q&A, where we will address as many of your questions as possible. And thank you for those who've already submitted questions. If you have a question for our panelists, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Board member Brian Hope will be monitoring the Q&A. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator, Judith Moore. Judy has been has had a distinguished career as an organizational development consultant, helping more than 90 organizations develop leadership, improve quality, and or plan for the future. She has strong ties with Syracuse University, having received her undergraduate and graduate degrees from SU, including a PhD in social psychology, and is currently serving as a life trustee of the university, among other things. Judy's been involved in the launch of several local community initiatives, including Focus, and actually came up with our Focus name, which stands for Forging Our Community's United Strength. She's been awarded numerous leadership awards. Among them, Focus Greater Syracuse is very proud to count Judy as one of our wisdom keepers, based on her longtime leadership in engaging citizens and improving life in Central New York. Judy.
Thank you, Rita. It's nice to be back in the Focus fold. And it's my distinct privilege to be able to introduce our distinguished collegiate leaders, both of whom are very warmly loved, highly regarded in our community. So I'll begin with Dr. Linda LeMura, who became the 14th president of LeMoyne College in 2014. She's the first female layperson to head a Jesuit higher ed institution in the United States. Before becoming president, she had served as provost and vice president for academic affairs at LeMoyne, playing a pivotal role in revising the college's core curriculum, establishing its business school, and expanding science facilities. All that, of course, followed upon a distinguished academic career at Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania, researching, writing, and teaching in science fields related to health issues that affect children and adults. Her numerous publications, including a still in use textbook, translated into many languages. Dr. LeMura has served as a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine, on the board of Northeast 10 Athletic Conference, as board member for the Council of Independent Colleges and Universities, and as an executive committee member for the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities. She was recently named a founding delegate of the International Association of Jesuit Universities. Beyond academia, she has advised Olympic committees here and abroad. She has served on the Regional Economic Development Council in Central New York, on the boards of Syracuse Symphony Ever Museum, and other local civic and cultural organizations I won't list here just to save time. Under President LeMura's leadership, LeMoyne College has experienced 5 record-breaking fundraising years, enrolled the second and third largest classes in the college's history, and received national recognition by U.S. News and World Report, Princeton Review, and the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. LeMoyne is ranked by College Choice magazine as one of the best Catholic colleges in the nation and has earned placement on the President's Higher Education Community Service Honor Roll. Moreover, several LeMoyne students have run prestigious scholarships from Fulbright and Boren programs. Those outcomes for students are where President LeMura sees her most essential role, and all of us watching this forum can attest to her popularity with her students, her warmth, and not least, her acumen on the basketball court. So, President LeMura, we turn to you.
My goodness. Well, thank you so much for that incredibly kind introduction. Maybe I shouldn't say too much after all of that. It was so lovely. Thank you. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to be here today. Thank you for this kind invitation to talk about such an enormously important topic, higher education in the age of COVID. And it's always a joy and an honor for me to be alongside my good friend and colleague, Ken Syverud, as well. I guess I would like to just share a few framing comments that hopefully will generate some questions later on in the program, insofar as COVID and our response to the challenges associated with COVID are concerned. To begin with, I think that last spring, when we had to close our college in March, after getting over the devastation of disappointing seniors with a loss of commencement and the intensive worry of students getting ill, we came to the conclusion rather rapidly that, in higher education, we're not always very good about the value proposition of studying the liberal arts and sciences, even if you are pursuing a career in the professions. And this complicated puzzle, if you will, provided the quintessential example of the value of the liberal arts and sciences, because we had to use a multiplicity of disciplines to react, to study, to reflect, in order to make good decisions on behalf of our own, campus community, and then the Syracuse community writ large. And by that I mean, not only did we need to be in touch with scientists and read and analyze what they had to say about the complexity of COVID-19 as they were learning new things on a daily basis, but we also had to be careful about how we communicated science. We needed to understand health disparities in our own community at LeMoyne and beyond. We had to have an understanding too of the psychological impact of isolation, the economic impact, and on and on. And, it's a model, thorny, sticky problem. And there are so many that we face now in the 21st century. And the way in which we collaborated also demonstrates the power of solutions coming from a multiplicity of individuals and institutions working together for the best possible answers. In our own case, we have been blessed, significantly, seriously blessed, by our longstanding partnership with Syracuse University that helped us with our protocols, helped us with our testing. When I wasn't sure about a particular decision to make, I would contact Kent and say, what do you think about this? And he was always so incredibly gracious and cared deeply about the safety, not only of his very large community, SU, but LeMoyne and other institutions as well. I saw so many of the questions that were submitted that have, at least a tangential relationship between what we endured during COVID-19 and other questions, for example, about the stickiness. What did we learn and when did we learn it? And we could go on and on and on about that. And there's no question we learned many, many lessons, and we'll get to those in due course. But I'd like to say that for the first time in my career, and I've been in higher education since I was literally, after graduating from Syracuse University, since I was 26 years old. I've never seen a challenge like this, the scope, the magnitude, the stakes. And, in the final analysis, it's the depth of relationships that allowed us to endure and do the best on behalf of our students whom we love, in order to keep them safe and on track. So the first order of the day was where are our students? How do we care for them? Whether they were on campus doing internships around the country or the world, studying abroad. We had to address that really, really quickly. and with tremendous data evidence and keeping up with all of the guidelines that were, it was akin to drinking from a fire hose, to be completely transparent with you. And then we needed to assist our faculty to toggle from, a revered model of learning in the Jesuit tradition, which is the high touch, face to face, the notion that the relationship between a professor and a student is essentially sacred. We needed to change that and change it very quickly and find ways to personalize the learning experience, even at long distance. And at LeMoyne, we take community and service, it's a bedrock pillar of Jesuit education writ large. And I was deeply concerned about the concerns of our neighbors, where many of our students reside off campus. Their worry when we brought students back that students would not abide by some of the guidelines that were put forth by Tony Fauci. And I'll put in a shameless plug for Jesuit education there. He is the classic example of what a Jesuit educated individual should be doing with their great education in terms of service and science, helping people to thrive. He went to the College of the Holy Cross, an older sibling of ours. And essentially our community indicated to us, we're scared. And I said, well, you're scared of our students. How could that be? And then they gave me examples of how, it made sense to me. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm not scared of our students. I will reside in the community with all of them off campus while the rest of our team attends to the needs of our students on campus. And that act in and of itself built community in really interesting and profound ways. And then finally, I would add before ending this part of my remarks, during the course of the pandemic, I felt as though, you may think this is a bit counterintuitive, that I needed time to think. I needed some time to think about what this could mean for the future of higher education, not only across the United States, but within Jesuit education and within our region. How can we work together in the future to really leverage the talent that we all enjoy on our campuses and the strengths and of each institution here in the region? So I submitted a proposal to Kent to consider me for a fellowship to study some of these issues on ways in which we could collaborate in the future to take advantage of this moment so that we can serve our current students well and future students and more students well. And he graciously allowed me to do that, for which I will always be grateful. And I'd be happy to talk about some of those projects in due course. It'll suffice to say that we've always enjoyed our relationship in terms of sending students over to SU for articulations in engineering in the Newhouse School in Maxwell, in the arts and sciences, a wonderful relationship with the law school. And the relationship between our two institutions has always been good, but now it's been extraordinary, in part thanks to the leadership and the goodwill of all the wonderful colleagues we have at Syracuse University. So with that, those are just some framing thoughts. I look forward to fielding some questions in due course, but for now, I will stop right there. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. Okay, so now it's my turn to introduce our Chancellor. Chancellor Kent Syverud is the 12th Chancellor and President of Syracuse University, now in his 8th year of leadership, seeing our community's beloved 150-year-old university through some of its hardest times. And he has done that brilliantly. He has overseen the creation of precedent-setting approaches to protecting his students, faculty, and staff from the disease we are now all still worrying about, provided as close to a genuine on-campus residential experience for students as would be possible for a college to achieve through this crisis, harnessed every aspect of technology imaginable in service to the now and future transformation of how higher education will be delivered and how academic research will be done on SU's Central New York campus and throughout all of her increasingly global footprint. As the saying goes, out of crisis comes opportunity. And I expect you will learn today some of the ways Syracuse University has affirmed that aphorism. Chancellor Syverud came to Syracuse University after already having earned distinction as a legal scholar and teacher and as a law school administrator, known for strategic thinking and visionary leadership at Washington University in St. Louis, Vanderbilt University, and the University of Michigan. His scholarship has addressed negotiation, civil litigation, dispute resolution, higher education, expertise that has surely come in handy these days. He continues to teach each semester as a faculty member of the College of Law and School of Education. He is an elected member of the American Law Institute, served as clerk for Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, and for 6 years was one of only 2 trustees for the $420 billion Deepwater Horizon Oil Spill Trust. Chancellor Syverud currently chairs the Atlantic Coast Conference Board of Directors. He serves on the boards of the New York State Commission on Independent Colleges and Universities, SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, Krause Hospital, and the Boy Scouts of America Longhouse Council. In past years, he's a commissioner for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, chair of the Law School Admissions Council, co-chair of the Regional Economic Development Council of Central New York. So how was Syracuse University able to lure Kent Syverud to the snowiest campus in the country? He had admired that campus as a boy, growing up in upstate New York, and he was home, back home. Aren't we lucky? Chancellor, over to you.
Thank you, Judy, for that introduction. And I'll just say, starting on this topic, that, I've watched, because of my role with the ACC and talking to all the ACC presidents every week, I've seen that in many university towns and cities, this COVID pandemic has driven the community and the colleges apart and have caused incredible frictions between nonprofits, government agencies, neighborhoods, and the various educational institutions as they struggle with what feels every day like whack-a-mole in dealing with this pandemic. And I guess the greatest tribute I can give to our region is that didn't happen in Syracuse. Instead, really, our institutions pulled together in pretty amazing ways. And I don't think Syracuse University would have been able to come through this so well without the constant counsel, help, support from people like Linda LeMura, from people like Mantosh Dewan at Upstate Medical University, and from our county executive and our mayor, among many others. So I think there's a lot to build on there. Syracuse as a region has not always been characterized by selfless collaboration of leaders across the board, but that's what's happened this last year, and I think we can build on the relationships that have been formed through that. Before I say more about Syracuse and COVID, I thought I'd say a little bit to embarrass Linda since she did the same to me. But I want to talk about LeMoyne College more directly. The measure of a college or a university, the appropriate measure in my view, is the value that it adds to the students who come there. And how does the education and the experience and the values that the students obtain at the school change in a positive way the trajectory of their lives as against what it would have been if they'd gone somewhere else or not gone to college at all? I taught at the University of Tokyo in Japan, which was the very top of a very hierarchical educational pyramid in Japan. And the students were truly spectacular, but for many of them, the greatest achievement of their life was getting in. And they were coasting once they got there because they already got into Tokyo University. The greatest achievement was getting in, not what they achieved because of what they learned at Tokyo University. And I contrast that to LeMoyne College. I've taught many LeMoyne students now because so often they come on to Syracuse to university for graduate degrees. And I've sent some of my Syracuse University undergraduates that I know well on to LeMoyne for graduate degrees, particularly in the health professions. And what I've seen is that LeMoyne adds just incredible value and values to the students it recruits. People really grow in every sense of the word at LeMoyne. And I admire that Linda has focused on that as one of the key attributes of her leadership. The combination of a LeMoyne and a Syracuse degree is particularly powerful. The students who have studied at both schools are really amazing. They disproportionately excel. They disproportionately stay in Syracuse and lead here. I could cite many examples of that, but just point to, for example, Andrew Lunetta, a LeMoyne and Syracuse Maxwell grad, who has founded the Tiny Home for Good, which builds houses for the homeless all around our city. That insight that LeMoyne and SU together are really powerful for our students is really why I was so excited about Linda doing the work and the fellowship she did. Figure out how to increase collaboration, not just between LeMoyne and Syracuse, but also with SUNY ESF and other institutions in the city. Of course, she did that fellowship under the most challenging circumstances of COVID, which meant I think she probably saw in person one person during the entire fellowship. But we'll get to talk more about that later in the questions. I'll say a few more words about COVID and then we can go to questions if that's okay. So the university has come reasonably well through the pandemic. We are worn and a little tattered at the edges. People are stressed. We have 5 weeks to go to commencement, and it has been mentally and physically exhausting for all in our community. But we've drawn on all in our community to address it, and the expertise across our faculty and other institutions. We were blessed to have many, many people abroad. And so we got an early perspective at Syracuse on what was going on abroad, both in Wuhan, where we have many students who come from, and in Italy. And that led us to start preparing for the pandemic in January of 2020, not in March. We shut down our study abroad programs before almost everyone else and scrambled to get our people home safely, thousands of our people, which we did. We then had to flip to online instruction at the same time as LeMoyne. And fortunately, we had pioneered a great deal of online education in the 2 years before then. And so we're able to flip more than 5,000 courses to entirely online, basically over one weekend. That led to a spring semester 2020 that was pretty challenging for all in our community, and let us resolve that we were going to open for in-person instruction in August for this academic year. A decision that most colleges and universities did not make. Indeed, many major colleges and universities, including in New York and Washington, DC, and major cities, are still not open, in case you didn't realize that. They're open for a few graduate programs, but the full undergraduate experience is now being planned for those for next August. It was tough opening for August. It required us overhauling how we did almost everything to do it safely and to get the confidence in the community. It required, in particular, aggressive testing regime before, during people arrived, and every week thereafter. It required surveillance testing, which we got help from Upstate and many others to pioneer how to do that well. And it included, lately, aggressive vaccination. We are requiring vaccination of all our students, faculty, and staff, but for medical and religious exceptions as of June 1st, which I think is probably the earliest date in the country. And the reason we're doing that is because, to be brutally blunt, most high school seniors today are desperate for the full in-person college experience. They have had a year and a half of their education incredibly disrupted. And that's true, of course, for our students who've already started at Syracuse. And the best way to return to the in-person activities, the sports, the intramural sports, the performances, the competitions, the classrooms, is for vaccination to occur. And so we're happy that we've been vaccinating like mad on campus the last couple of weeks. Well over 50% of our student body and our faculty and staff have already been vaccinated. We expect to make the June 1st deadline so that anyone coming on our campus can feel that they're coming to a safe place, including for in-person experiences. Looking forward, boy, we learned so much from the experience of the last year and a half. the thing we learn most about is that some things work and some things don't work with virtual instruction and virtual experiences. And the thing that works the least, it's adequate, but the thing that works the least is trying to teach a group of students online and in person at the same time. That was my class in the fall semester. I had half my students on a huge video screen and half my students in person. And the dynamic of trying to engage and educate and inspire 30 people on the screen and 30 people in person at the same time is, to put it mildly, schizophrenic. Okay, it's the most challenging teaching I've ever done. We learned a lot of other things that are going to inform how we're very different going forward coming out of the pandemic, but mostly want you to know that, like LeMoyne, Syracuse University is going to come out of the pandemic strong, and I think continue to be a mainstay in this community. Thanks, Judy.
I gather at this point, Brian Hoke is now equipped with all of the questions that you have sent in, and some really excellent ones on that list. Brian, I think it's now over to you to start that process of engaging our two speakers here with the audience out there who wants to hear more.
Thanks, Judy. And thanks, President LeMura, Chancellor Syverud, for being here, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you to everybody attending, and in particular, those that sent in questions. Certainly folks in attendance now are welcome to send in questions, but we got a lot of them in advance of today's session. So probably unlikely we'll get to them, but please feel free. Perhaps unsurprisingly, a lot of the questions we received were about the before and after, right? Some of what happened during COVID, as you both mentioned in your remarks, worked. A lot of the questions were about, are there practices or policies that did work perhaps and will persist? I guess also perhaps things that didn't work as well. But going forward, if we can ask you to look into your crystal balls, are there significant changes in delivery of education or any other kind of policy that you can foresee as a result of what we've struggled through in the last months?
Kent?
I'll go first quickly and just say that our students and our faculty are forever changed by what they've experienced. And I think the faculty has changed because whereas before the pandemic, roughly only a third of our faculty had taught a class online, we are now at virtually 100%. And they've learned all sorts of tools and techniques that make them adaptable to all sorts of platforms and situations going forward. The way our students have changed is in some ways more of an opportunity and challenge. They will never again be satisfied with having only one format available for them getting what they need to get to learn. They have experienced online, they have experienced their ability to learn from wherever they are, whenever they are, in whatever format they're working with. And I do think our students are going to expect that going forward. I think our aerospace engineering students are going to expect to be able to go to Florence for a semester and still take their aerospace engineering classes. I think our drama students are going to expect that they can continue to progress in their drama program, even if because of an illness or a family setback, they're not able to be on campus. And that unbundles so many things and creates opportunities for us if we embrace them.
Gotcha. Linda, did you want to comment on that?
I would add briefly, I would say that roughly 20% of our faculty engaged in online learning at our college. And as a function of COVID, we're now, I would say 100% proficient. For us, we see, a growing opportunities in the online area, but I have to say that we need to study where it's most effective with various groups of students based upon their K-12 experiences and the like. And there could be some spots where it makes just incredibly good sense for hybrid type teaching and allowing for a variety of pedagogies, as Kent mentioned. And it's getting that proper balance, if you will, between the high touch that we were known for and love, and also expanding opportunities in the online space, but doing it, judiciously, right? So that we can really enhance learning outcomes. I can't imagine LeMoyne moving forward in the future without some element of online learning as part of our ongoing academic portfolio.
Gotcha. Thank you. We had certainly related questions, excuse me, about, say, residential life. Are there lessons learned perhaps in addressing the recent struggles that might persist because you learned something that maybe it's not directly related to the pandemic, but yes, this happened to work better, even though we were forced to do it because of the pandemic? Anything that comes up from a facilities or residential life, just the on-campus life in either of your institutions that you could see persisting for 1 year, 5 years, et cetera?
I think we should start with the president who moved into the neighborhood next to the students.
Well, my goodness, so many challenges in terms of residence life. In our case, we need to be more thoughtful about the kind of housing options that we provide for students. And I think insofar as the relationship between housing, student development, and academic affairs, we need to do so much more work to understand how learning is impacted outside of the classroom proper. And I guess I feel compelled on the LeMoyne campus to find more points of contact between student development and academic affairs to try to break down some of those silos so that both parts of the campus can learn from one another in the service of the student. This notion that learning occurs in these siloed areas of the campus is just, it's antiquated thinking, and the entire campus needs to be viewed as a learning opportunity. And also when students go off campus, what we've learned is we've done just a terrible job in preparing them to be good citizens and neighbors. And I say that in a spirit of not only transparency, but embarrassment. Students we love them dearly, but this notion that you move off campus and the sky is the limit in terms of behaviors doesn't serve them well, doesn't serve our neighbors well, or the communities in which they reside. So going forward, I can assure you we will do a better job of preparing students for off-campus housing.
Gotcha. Thank you. Kent,
Yeah,
anything else?
I'd say,
please.
Well, I just say we at Syracuse University worked very closely with the neighborhoods in a way, I think, more deeply than we had in many years, because of our shared concern for COVID off campus, creating a situation where our neighbors would be unsafe and our university wouldn't be able to operate. So we put many dozens of our employees out there on the streets in the neighborhood all night to help counsel, guide, report, inspire. And I think it had a positive effect. Most of our COVID cases at Syracuse University were off campus until very recently. The vast majority of the problem was off-campus gatherings. And so I think a larger number of us have had the experience of what that off-campus life is like Linda said, and we need to regard the whole student as our responsibility, not just the student when they're in class during the day.
Amen.
Gotcha.
Amen.
What's been the effect on international students? I imagine some of them who may have come to either of your schools could not do so because of the pandemic. What's the current state of that, and how might things look different a year from now or a little farther as a result of the pandemic?
Well, it's been about the most challenging time for international students I can ever remember, and it's not just COVID. It also was some of the federal policies with regard to international students that are getting better, but were challenging. Right now, we have a significant drop in the number of international students seeking to come to the United States and to Syracuse University. That's because, candidly, the reputation of the United States as a place to study has taken a hit compared to some other places that are competing aggressively with us. Nevertheless, we still have thousands of international students here, and we worked hard to differentiate Syracuse in their minds. We have hundreds and hundreds of students who are finishing their freshman year at Syracuse University in China right now, because we made arrangements for a freshman year at Syracuse University to be available in 2 places in China. Those students still need to get visas to get into the United States, and the visa process is still quite slow. Other than that, if you think of the stress on our domestic students of COVID, and then you magnify it by the fact that our international students have been unable to travel home for almost 2 years, you can imagine the level of support they need. And then that's all against an environment where there has been incidents of bias or hostility to international people in the United States and in Syracuse. So it calls for all of us to step up. These are wonderful students who are as orange as anybody. So it's a major focus of the team here.
Linda, did you want to comment on that?
I would just say that the pandemic, it really unearthed, if you will, or revealed some of the latent tensions that we've been experiencing and a wide range of social topics in this country and even locally. And that I can foresee us spending more time and effort on mental health concerns for our students. I mean, the combination of, the economic disparities, economic tensions, isolation, all kinds of stresses and anxieties on top of the desire to ensure a good learning experience so that our students can, grow and be competitive and have a life of meaning. All those things coalesced to really change the way we view things like, for example, student development vis-a-vis academic affairs. So these are investments that we're going to have to make in a significant way, and they have changed the way we approach teaching and learning at the college in perpetuity.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I guess from the sort of converse, I would imagine American students at either of your schools didn't study abroad this year, right? For obvious reasons. Is there an expectation that next spring or the following year, is there any sense of, or is that just too hard to look into the distant future and predict?
Yeah, we have very limited study abroad programs this semester, all in Florence. So we do have cohorts of students in Florence, but it was very tough to do this spring.
Gotcha.
We're expecting to open all our study abroad centers in August, for study abroad, including in Florence, Strasbourg, London, Madrid. We will, and Santiago in Chile. What we're seeing changing, though, is the degree to which parents want their kids to study abroad, particularly parents at other institutions. Our study abroad centers support not just Syracuse students, but students from about 100 other universities. And we're seeing more fear about going abroad. And that's going to affect our business model, if nothing else, but we're very dedicated to continuing giving our students a study abroad experience.
Gotcha. Thank you. That moves into another area about which we had a few questions: finances, right? I mean, the cost of higher education has gone up traditionally. I'm sure the challenge in attracting, say, international students, in getting students to study at an SU program abroad, how might the recent challenges from the pandemic affect finances for your institutions going forward?
I would say in the LeMoyne case, we have, taken a serious financial hit as a function of COVID, spending millions and millions of dollars on testing and protocols and you name it. And of course, Syracuse, given its size, the orders of magnitude higher. this is really, in some strange ways, COVID has done us a favor in that it's highlighted the challenges that existed in higher education from a financial and economic point of view prior to COVID. COVID essentially laid bare the unsustainable business models that most of us have, with the exception of a very, very, very few schools throughout the country where money is absolutely no object. We're constantly forced with asking and answering the question: are our schools engines of equality or inequality by whom we serve? And one of the reasons that I wanted to embark upon the fellowship, and as I mentioned before, I'm deeply grateful to Chancellor Syverud for giving me that opportunity. There are ways in which our institutions in Central New York to collaborate in order to expand the universe of students that we can serve, so that we're not closing individuals out. The devil is always in the details, but Kent has always been interested and willing to hear some ideas that I have about this really important topic. If we want to recruit the best and the brightest faculty members, we need to have solid business models. It really is that simple. We have to be able to compete in the marketplace, if you will, for faculty across all disciplines, and to be able to provide them with the kind of compensation package that attracts them to our institutions. That's just the nature of the beast. In order to do that, we cannot rely solely on raising tuition. We can't go there. We're reaching the upper limits, and the higher we go, obviously, we have concerns about whom we're serving. By leveling the intellectual talent across the institutions in this area, we can do more for more people. And that's always been an aspiration of mine, and I know of Kent as well. So during the fellowship, I proposed some ideas regarding how Syracuse University, which is a bedrock, an anchor, an economic engine in all the best virtuous ways that I can explain these things, as a magnet for talent, by leveraging the unique Jesuit values that we have and talent on our campus, SUNY ESF with their nice bench strength in environmental science, the great intellectual capacity of SUNY Upstate. Rather than operating, we're all somewhat guilty of operating in silos, even on our own campus. We try everything to get all the disciplines to bump in and meet one another, and it's easier said than done. But by leveraging all this talent, I think we could be a harbinger of hope and a model that other regions could emulate, because we all care about one another. We all respect each other immensely. We have the support of our congressional representative and the mayor and the county exec, and the stars are aligned in my lifetime. I'm a native of this area, where there's a great opportunity to leverage these institutions in new and exciting ways. So the idea that I submitted to Kent, and we're studying it, is, can we do something beyond all the wonderful initiatives that Syracuse has? Quantum computing is on the table, and the veterans initiatives. These are game changers for the university and our region. As I say to Kent, when Syracuse University does well, it redounds magnificently on LeMoyne. So I'll always be an Orange fan. There's no question about that. But the area of climate change is ripe for innovation, and our institutions all have something really, really interesting and compelling to bring to this complex interdisciplinary problem. Think about the complex problem of COVID on steroids, right? Where you need all these disciplines working together, breaking down these silos on behalf of the greater good. In our tradition, in the Jesuit tradition, stewardship of the earth, primarily because of its the impact on the poor and the marginalized, that is climate change, is a top priority among the Jesuit order, which is on every continent except for Antarctica. They tell me they're going there next. I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, so we're contemplating this in dialogue with Upstate and with ESF, with SU as an important anchor institution with massive research infrastructure, so that we can do better by our students, graduate students, bringing in more talent, external sources of funding in unique and interesting ways. So it's a dream, but dreams start by, you know, sharing ideas and trying to refine them over time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all I'd add to that is, yes, the COVID was a financial hit for Syracuse University, and it wasn't just the testing and the PPE and the small drop of enrollment. We did have a small drop of enrollment, but it's coming back. It was that we needed, out of concern for our students, to provide emergency financial aid and extra financial aid for a large number of students whose economic circumstances changed dramatically because of the economic dislocation to their families. We made that shift. We're running a substantial deficit this year, but expected to get back to a very solid business model for the next fiscal year, and every belief we'll be able to do that. That said, I agree with Linda that we're coming out of this fairly strong enables us to have opportunities to invest in areas of collaboration that maybe other places that have been more challenged won't be able to do to get their acts together. And I do think the environment and sustainability is one of those areas. And I do think that we have so much to draw on, and not just from local governments, but from the national government, like the Onondaga Nation, which focuses very much on these issues, and from, candidly, some one or two fairly important Syracuse graduates who are in Washington. So we're hoping to make our best of this.
Thank you. We had a lot of questions on collaboration, and I appreciate the fact that you both addressed them even before I brought them up, both between your institutions and with other higher ed places and local and other types of government. So thank you. We have not too much time, but I'll ask one more and maybe another after that if we can get to it. We had a question asking, how can folks who serve K through 12 students, how can they best prepare students for higher education, especially given COVID? Are there things that are different, things that you would recommend for folks coming into the pipeline, perhaps applying for either of your schools?
Kent?
I'd say that it's been a challenging year. We've put a lot of effort to assist the Syracuse City Schools in its transition to virtual. I'd say there are things, as Linda referred to, that are best learned by a direct one-on-one interaction with the teacher. One of those is how to write. Okay, and I do think that writing skills are atrophying generally in society because of our reliance on tweets and other things to communicate, and that how you learn to write is by working directly with someone who edits and insists on rigor in your thought that's reflected in your writing. I'd say people who can write counterintuitively are going to have, I say counterintuitively because there's a view of many parents that nobody should major in English. They should major in something that's going to get an immediate job. But what I'm seeing is that people can write, have an incredible leg up in any occupation. And so if I were a parent of a school-age kid right now, I'd be very focused in making sure they can write clearly and persuasively.
My wife is an English teacher, so I'm jotting down the time code for your comments right here to share with her later, but thank you. I'm sorry, Linda, did you want to come in on that?
Just very briefly, the college we put a lot of effort and resources into helping the Syracuse City School District thrive. We are, like Kent, very, very concerned about writing skills, and you'll never hear me argue anything about the importance of good writing. Social media has really, it's a blessing and a curse. There's little doubt in my mind. Trying to explain to students, for example, even college students, that the ability to leverage a good persuasive argument in a box that's, text box that this is that big, it's not in your best interest, and good writing requires critical thinking. The other thing I would add to it is, given the changing nature of the economy, that students, in addition to writing, who have a facility with quantitative reasoning skills also will have more economic opportunity, and it will help them to thrive in an economy that's constantly changing, but the ability to write and to think quantitatively, those skills, I promise you, will never go out of style.
Well, thanks to you both for sharing your thoughts today. I appreciate it. Judy, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you, Brian. And we have quite a few minutes left, so I definitely want to make sure we give our guests here certainly a final chance to close with whatever closing comments have occurred to them as we're talking now. It's been a wonderful experience, really, for me as well. And I'm thinking about how Rita said the name of the organization that has made this possible started with Forging Our Community's United Strength, and thinking about what a vital part of our community's united strength Syracuse University and LeMoyne College are. So you've been fabulous spokespeople for those wonderful institutions. And I guess I would just say, what do you see as the most positive outcome that's going to come out of this crisis-provoked opportunity of how higher education might be delivered in the future? And maybe those would be closing comments that we could do at this point before we say goodbye. And which of you would like to start?
Go ahead, Linda.
I suspect the higher education of the future will include the kind of residential experience that we have now and we're really good at, born out of the Renaissance, and has tremendous endurance, great legs, if you will, and serves a subset of the population quite well. But I also see growing online learning such that individuals who cannot avail themselves of residential learning will have access to information, knowledge, good teaching, high quality teaching in unconventional ways. And given the rapid pace of change in the economy, we are all lifelong learners now. So different parts of the population will need different services, educational services, depending upon the challenges before them. And this notion that higher education is embedded only in the 18 to 21-year-old subset of the population is an antiquated one. There's so much for us to do. And I like to say this, I mean this sincerely, no one can do anything alone anymore. It's a huge challenge, but at the same time, an enormous opportunity. And if anything came out of the pandemic from where I sit, when you feel vulnerable, you have a sense of who your friends are. And there's no question that, here I'm part of a global network of 189 universities around the world. And, we have great friends in the Jesuit network, from the oldest, which is Georgetown, and we're the youngest, and a whole bunch in between. No one has been a better friend or neighbor than our next door neighbor, Syracuse University. And it shows you the power of collaboration, even when the catalyst is something like COVID-19. I just will be forever grateful for Kent and his entire institution, the faculty, the administration, for being such great neighbors. Thank you.
And Brian, I guess I'd just say, I appreciate that it's a two-way street and has been with LeMoyne all year. I guess I want to focus more locally than on the future of higher education. When I came back to upstate New York after 30 years away, I was struck at how often people had a chip on their shoulder and a belief that somehow, some way, it must be done better somewhere else. And I just wonder if people in our community really appreciate how effective and competent key institutions in this region have been in dealing with COVID compared to almost anywhere else I'm aware of. Our county government, our city government, our institutions of learning, our neighborhoods, our people really stepped up. And as a result, we're in such a better position than so many places to come out of a very challenging time in our country as a better, stronger place. So I'm just hoping that people will come out of COVID believing in us a little more and realizing that, hey, it actually isn't better elsewhere. There aren't better opportunities elsewhere. if we work together, we can blow the socks off any region in the country. Thank you.
Amen.
And thank you, Linda and Kent, for a great sharing your experience and a great experience here today. And I hope everyone else has had this enjoyable and informative experience as I have. We'll be posting this forum on the Focus website, focussyracuse.org. So please be sure to tell your friends that they're welcome to review this forum as well as others that we've done this past year. You can also, I have to say this, you can also easily make a donation on our site, and I encourage everyone to consider doing so. Beyond that, thanks to all. Have a wonderful weekend. And again, great work here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.